of what day it is. Craig Martelle coming to you live from the subarctic. And today we have Patrick O'Donnell. Where are you coming from, Patrick?
I'm coming from Waukesha, Wisconsin, which is about 30 miles west of Brew City, Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
30 miles west. Oh, hey, yeah. The first time I met Patrick a few years ago, I was at Gary Con in Lake Geneva, and Patrick drove all the way out there to say hi and have a beer with me and a burger. You were starving because you had worked that day.
Yeah, I did. It's funny because I didn't know about, first of all, I didn't know about the Hawaiian shirt thing. Yeah, I walked in and almost everybody's wearing a Hawaiian shirt, and I'm like, well, I feel out of place a little bit, but that's okay, whatever. And I saw you, and it was kind of like an Obi-Wan situation. It's like, well, I know you've been super successful, and I want to gain this, like, the super secrets to publishing and writing. And I remember I asked you, and it's like, I'm chomping away on my burger and drinking a beer, and I'm like, hey, what's the secret to this? He said, nothing sells your book better than the next book that you're going to write. You have to keep writing. And I'm like, that's it? I'm like, okay, sounds good.
It has worked well for me, and yeah, there's other things that you need to do. And one thing that you've done is you started the group Cops and Writers because you're now retired. You were active duty. You were at the end of the twilight of your career as a police sergeant in Milwaukee. You saw a lot of stuff. You worked a lot of policy issues, and now you've retired. And what are you doing nowadays?
Well, like we were talking about before, my plan was I retired. My last day on the job was January 16. My last official day was February 21st. I had all kinds of travel plans, all kinds of cool stuff going on. Then, of course, everything kind of blew up a little bit. So I'm at home. Yeah, my wife is at home. We're more or less empty nesters. Our kids kind of come and go. I've got one son that's in the Army. He's down in Fort Polk in Louisiana. He's pretty much down on lockdown down there. So, there's no chance of seeing him or him coming to me. And my other son was going to college at UW Stout. And he's at his mother's house right now, but every now and then he comes to visit me. So, yeah, life has changed dramatically, but hopefully this will be over with more sooner than later. I can do my travel stuff, and then in the fall, I'm just going to have to reevaluate and do some other things. But trying to get some writing done, and I'm doing consulting work, so I'm not just sitting around eating bonbons.
That's cool how you leveraged into consulting for authors. And once again, that's by getting yourself out there. That, hey, I'm here. You wrote a few books. You wrote the nonfiction book on police procedure, and things to think about for authors. But you wrote the majority of that while you were still full time. So how did you balance your writing with your work life?
I wrote all of it when I was working full time, and I wrote I think it was 4 other books before that, some nonfiction and some fiction before that. And it's like anything else, I remember I like to listen to Jim Kukral and Brian Cohen's podcast, and Jim is always like, how bad do you want it? It's like you would hear stories about the housewife that's got 3 kids and will wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and put in the work before anybody else was up. So that was like their time. The secret to me, I had to get up at 5:30 in the morning anyway, so for work, so that was not an option. I would bring my MacBook with me everywhere, and I mean everywhere. If I was getting my car, when I wasn't working, if I was getting an oil change for my car or whatever, MacBook always came with me, and I was always working. Then usually in the evening, my wife is a voracious reader, and she goes to bed around 8 o'clock at night just to go read. And that was my time. TV goes off, and I write, or I do something with, work. I got to do something with work. My last year and a half was at a very busy district. But before that, for about 3 years, when I went day shift, I was stuck at a slow district that I didn't want to be at. And I would write when I was working. If it was slow, I was a sergeant. And what that means is I was a patrol sergeant. So I was the one in charge of the cops on the street. And if there wasn't a whole lot going on, I would just pull into a cemetery or a park, flop open the computer, and kind of put it against my bulletproof vest and just start typing away. And you do what you got to do. And then I also looked at people who were doing it. Look at Scott Moon. He's still working full time. I believe he's a sergeant, and he's doing a bang up job. But he's starting early. He's working late. It's how bad do you want it?
Yeah, and that's work within your own schedule. You were able to produce 4 books while working full time. Other people have produced 1. Other people have produced more, and it doesn't matter. It all matters what you are able to do without completely stressing yourself out. So it's not like, hey, my whole world has changed. I'm working 16 hours a day and I'm trying to get an extra hour or 2 writing. Maybe that's not the best thing. Maybe it's a weekend that you might be able to squeeze in 4 hours total over the course of a weekend, as opposed to every day trying to do that. When you have a few minutes during the week, if you don't have a lot of time, think about your plot, think about your characters. And then when you write, it's much, much more efficient writing time. So this is, yes, it's important to have your fingers on the keyboard and writing, but it's better if you already know what you're going to write, because then you can really crank out the words pretty fast. Not you, I've seen you type, but like normal people.
Well, and I had a long commute. I'm 30 miles outside the city. So sometimes my commute was an hour going to work in the morning, and stuff would just pop into my head. And I'd be trying to put it on my phone as I'm driving. Not the safest thing, I guess, but
nice. But nobody's going to arrest you.
Yeah, well, but I'm just like, oh shit, that character could do this, or oh, that just popped into my head, and I didn't want it. I didn't want it gone. You have that moment. You're like, okay, and you don't want it to just fly out the window. So I'm on my iPhone trying to my
do a
big
voice
old
recording.
Yes. So I had a ton of voice recordings, or I was trying to text in the notes, but just so I could capture it for when I got home or later on in the afternoon, if it was slow, at least I could take care of it.
You bet. And good on you. What, for people writing police into their books, what is one of the main problems you see people making? Main mistakes?
There's quite a few, and that comes from TV. Not as much books, but some books, but a lot of it's Hollywood, TV, movies, etc. Boy, it's I don't even know where to start. There's so many, but
I would recommend starting with Adam 12, because that's everything I know about cops. So.
I loved Adam 12. It's like I was watching Adam 12 not too long ago. I was looking at their belts, and it's like they had a gun, spare bullets. They didn't even have speed loaders. They just had, just loose rounds for their 38s.
Yeah.
Or maybe they had 357s. I'm not sure back then. And the long baton, and that's and handcuffs, and that was it. Yeah. I mean, now the bat, we call them the bat belt, and you got everything under the sun on that frickin' thing. And now even belts are turning into vests because there's so much weight. Old cops like me, your back and your hips start going because you have all the load on there. So, even back then, something would be happening with Reed and Malloy, and they'd have to run back to their car to go on the radio. They didn't even have a radio on their person. How times have changed. But as far as what people get wrong, a lot of times, I guess I could start with rank. There's a rank structure in almost every police department, and there's a chain of command. You start out as a police officer, or perhaps a sheriff's deputy, depending on which department you're going to. And you got to put your time in as a cop. And that's usually taking assignments. You're assigned in a car, and you take assignments. You're a slave to the radio, they call it. You're a slave to the dispatch. And then after you get some time on, there's 2 different paths you could take. And one path is patrol. That's the path that I took. And the other path would be investigations. And that's more the detective route. But that gets screwed up. Sometimes that gets intermarried. And in shows or stories. And also, Car 54, where are you? That's funny. Um, so what happens is, most cops spend their careers being cops. I worked for a department of 1,800. There was maybe 200 sergeants, the rest, and maybe 100 more lieutenants, captains, um, inspectors, assistant chiefs, blah, blah, blah. But the bulk of your police department is cops. So if you're going to be writing a story about cops, most of the time it's going to be cops. And cops are the ones who have the highest liability. They're the first ones there. If there's like a big scene, and a lot of times you don't even know it's a big scene until you get there. You could be called to a shots fired, and then there's 2 dead bodies laying on the sidewalk. And you're like, all right. On TV or in stories, a detective just magically appears and just takes over. And that's not even close to what happens in reality. Sometimes it could be an hour, sometimes more, before you see a detective even show up at a homicide. A lot of stuff happens before they even get there. So
when on TV you see somebody, oh, hey, tape off this scene. I suspect the police are on scene have already done all of that.
Yes, that was my job. I was a sergeant, so I was in charge of the cops. So if there was a crime scene, I was the incident commander. And the cop was the incident commander before I got there. You had to have one person in charge. And that was not just to be the in charge guy, but also hey, you know what? This is still an active scene. There's a guy inside this house that has an AK-47, and the windows are facing to the north. So guess what? Cars that are coming to respond don't come from the north, come from the south. Just so you know, this is what's going on. This is the danger level. And as a sergeant, it's like, okay, I need these additional resources. Maybe I need more cops. Give me some motorcycles. Motorcycle cops are the traffic guys. But at a huge scene, like say a big fire, they block the intersection guys. That's what I need them for. And if it's going to be a really big scene, then you almost have to take yourself out of the active stuff, and you're more of an administrator on that scene where you're keeping track of everybody and what they're doing. So again, that's a sergeant job, and you never see that on TV. You see a detective, kind of pointing fingers and ordering people around. They don't want to do that. They don't want anything to do with that. That's their investigation, and they have to be responsible for that. But they are not the ones who are chasing cars. They're not kicking down doors. The cops do almost all that. And and especially on the patrol side, when you're in patrol, you do your time. You could either promote into supervision like I did, or you could go to specialty units. And it all depends on the department. Maybe you love motorcycles. You love riding motorcycles. So you could be a motorcycle cop. You like horses. Like our department has horses. You could be a mounted patrol. You can, especially guys that have military backgrounds that are more high speed, they like trying out for the SWAT team. But what's funny about like a SWAT team or attack unit or anything like that, most of the time when they're called, everything's over with. It's kind of anticlimactic for them. It's like, because scenes are boom, boom, boom. They're very quick. They're very fast moving. And you don't have the luxury of just freezing everything until, okay, we'll wait for SWAT. Well, yeah, you could call them, but you also know that if you call SWAT, they have their own way of doing things, and you're going to be there a long time. That's just the nature of the beast. And there have been times in my career where I kind of didn't want that, nor did my cops. And it's like, well, let's take care of the situation right now. And Columbine was like the big eye opener for America. Was we don't have time to wait for a SWAT team, or it's like you get 2 or 3 other cops, you go in and you go take care of business. You don't have a choice anymore. That's for like an active shooter. But there's a time and a place for SWAT too. If you have a standoff with a barricaded subject, hell yeah, I want the Bearcat. I want guys with shields. I want guys with gas. That have. They're all on the same sheet of music when it comes to training, when it comes to their equipment. there's a time and a place for it. And Hollywood usually gets that wrong. There's a TV show right now that's called SWAT. They're running around in like tight t-shirts and BDU pants, and they're running around solving crimes. That is the last thing a SWAT guy wants to do. They just want to train and blow shit up, and just have fun SWAT stuff. Just so
yeah. Lift weights, run, be in shape, and
yeah.
Another thing I know shows get violently wrong, and this is from my career as a lawyer, is a cop shoots somebody, and the next day they get the happy handshake and they're back on the job.
Yeah, that really gets on my last nerve, because I was the incident commander for 7 different police officer involved shootings where an officer had to shoot and kill somebody. And I've been around a multitude of other shootings where, the person didn't die or they're shooting at us. And the last 2, I was 1 block away when they both happened. It was just dumb luck that I wasn't there. That's the way life is. And there's actually a bunch of investigations that occur at one of those situations, whereas, if I shoot and kill someone, that's a homicide. But, is it a justifiable
and that's,
homicide?
As a lawyer, I'll define that. A homicide is simply the taking of one life by another, like a human taking one life by another. And that's all. A homicide is not a judgment. Justifiable means it was legally done. And murder then is it was not legally done, and now you have a charge. Manslaughter is, oh, by the way, it was done, but it might be accidental. It was just gross negligence or other reasons for manslaughter, as opposed to trying to stick a murder charge on somebody. But homicide is simply the non-judgmental act of one person killing another.
Correct. And what happens in one of these scenes is obviously you have to investigate this, and some states, I think more than less, because things changed for us probably about 7 years ago, 6 years ago, whereas, say, okay, a Milwaukee police officer shoots and kills somebody, the Milwaukee Police Department's homicide shoot team is not going to be doing the investigation. They have an outside investigation, and we have agreements with outside jurisdictions, and it's like, okay, if this happens, you're going to take care of us, and it's on kind of a rotating basis. And the same thing with our homicide guys. If there is a homicide in Waukesha, which there was actually, the police had to shoot and kill somebody outside the hospital 2 nights ago or a night ago, most likely the Milwaukee Police Department is going to go in there. And when they go in there, they investigate the homicide. It's no judgment. It's collecting evidence, interviewing witnesses, collecting, doing whatever forensic stuff that needs to be done. And it's not up to them to make any kind of judgment. That's where sometimes people get a little confused. At one of these incidences, you might as well set up 3 tents, because it's going to be a circus. Everybody and their freaking mother is going to be there. And and many times they have to be there, and sometimes it's just some ass kisser that just wants to get promoted, and they want to be on TV, or look at me, chief, I'm being copish here, maybe I'll throw around an order or something and look important, because I want to be a captain, or I want to be an inspector. And I had that happen.
That's not just the cops. That's not just the cops. That happens everywhere.
Yeah, like I remember one time I was an incident commander, and it was cold. I was crabby. Nobody was playing nice with each other, and I had this. She was a captain, and she starts throwing orders around, and I'm like, I look at her, and I'm like, okay, and she walked away. And I was the incident commander, but the night inspector was another captain, and she looked at me and she says, Pat, that's all bullshit. I'm like, fuck you, what is this? What is she doing? And he says, don't worry about it, Pat. And I'm like, all right, I'm not. Believe me, I got enough on my plate right now. I've got a clipboard this big, and I'm trying to figure out, who's doing what and keeping track of everybody. So, yeah. So you have all kinds of different moving parts to this, but the district attorney, the district attorney is most likely going to show up to your scene, and they have investigators. They will be investigating. You will have, like I said before, maybe an outside jurisdiction. They're going to be doing the physical investigation. Then you're going to have you're going to have detectives and officers, not officers, but sergeants, and maybe upper brass from internal affairs. There's going to be an internal investigation to make sure you were following correct department procedure during this shooting. So you're getting investigated, and yeah, it's an incredibly stressful time for the cop. It's it's a no-win situation for everyone, and it sucks. And I've been through it a bunch.
And they're usually put on what, paid admin leave for the duration until they get
absolutely
cleared.
Yeah, we call it riding the pine. It's like you're going to be behind a desk. But our department has gotten much, much better through the years. Whereas, hey, if you need a little extra time, you know what, we'll give it to you. And the natural instinct for a good cop is they just want to get back on the street again. They hate being inside.
Yeah.
They didn't become a street cop to sit inside. So it goes against their
ride a desk.
Yeah, you're riding the pine. It sucks. I mean, the minimum I've seen is probably 6 months. The longest I saw was up to a year. And that's a long time because, the actual investigation has to occur. Then the DA has to do their investigation. Then on top of that, like I said before, after that is all done, then internal affairs has to do their investigation. So, and it used to be you were interviewed 3 different times, which was incredibly stressful because, most human beings don't remember everything that occurred. And sometimes like a week later, you remember, nuggets from what happened that night. It's happened to me a bunch of times, especially
or forget things.
Right. You're under duress. And, the immediate thing is you're thinking it's like, well, they're going to think that I'm lying because now I'm adding stuff, that happened, blah, blah, blah. Or I omitted this because I talked to Craig from internal affairs and I left this out. But when I talked to Pat from, the DA's office, I included this. So now it's one interview and it's not done right away. It used to be done like you're in this shooting at, say, 2:00 in the morning. You're getting interviewed probably by about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. You'd have to wake up an attorney or a representative to be with you. And then you would get the interview, and the interview could be 1-2 hours long. Then the last thing was you'd have to go take a drug test.
Yeah, of course.
A sergeant would have to go take you for a drug test.
And that's to make
standard
sure that
operating
you're clear.
Right.
And that's fine. It's just, hey, I wasn't. It's eliminating possible causes. And one of the things that come out of this is while you're waiting, you don't know your fate. I had an investigation done against me when I worked for Department of Homeland Security. It turned out it was a fake allegation, but I'm doing exactly the same. I'm riding the pine, not able to interact with the people I was responsible for while waiting for a determination from the fucking federal government who weren't there. They sent out some jaundiced, jaded dickweeds to do the investigation, and who were trying to make names for themselves. They did this investigation. So, and their final words were, "Oh, you better not do anything. You just sit right there until we come back for you." I'm like, what the fuck are you? Now, the people, it turned out, all got fired later over the next few years. So I had my payback because they were just such raging dickheads. But you're sitting there, you don't know your fate.
Right.
You don't know, because you're thinking you could be charged with frickin' murder or manslaughter, or you could just lose your job. And oh, by the way, you might get cleared too. And so you're thinking of all these possibilities, and might get cleared is just such a narrow piece of your possible future, that I know that the police departments now offer psychology, psychiatrists, and extra counseling to help the cops with these unknowns.
Yeah. As long as I've been on, you had to make an appointment with a psychologist or a psychiatrist before they would clear you.
Yeah.
And if they deemed it that, hey, you know what, you might need a little extra help, you had to do it. There was no option there. And that's a good thing. But we finally got our own department psychologist and a chaplain, which actually was huge. It took forever to get it done, which, I mean, any kind of government job and bureaucracy, just It's a
Yeah.
joke. But at least we have that for the cops. So things have gotten better. They really have. And it's about time, and it took forever. But like you said, it's the waiting. And if you're writing a story, if you have your main character shoot and kill somebody that, they're a cop, and if you think that they're out, a couple hours later and they're back in a car chase, that's so not even close. What you could do is, you could bend time, make it 3 months or whatever. It's like, hey, give that cop a drinking problem. He's going to have problems with at home with his spouse.
Yeah, as he's stacking up number of divorces.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. That's real. It's like, I remember an older cop when I first got on. It's like, you married, kid? And I'm like, yeah. And he says, you won't be for long. So you're not a real cop unless you got one or two divorces under your belt.
Yeah, don't commit too much to that, and make sure her name's not on the mortgage. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just like, oh, great, that sounds cheery. But yeah, make sure you put it in there, the angst that even though it's a totally good shooting, it's super justified. Bad guy is firing rounds at you or
running
whatever.
Out. Yep.
And but it plays with your head. So use that. Use that to your advantage. And the last thing you want to do is put this cop back on the street, and it's Murphy's Law. He's going to get into the same shit again. Now you got 2 shootings you got to worry about. That's another reson why they keep
with
him
the first
inside.
one unresolved.
Correct.
Yeah.
You can't do it. You just can't. So yeah. So give them if you want to do a little time travel, fast forward. Now they're living in some shithole apartment. Their wife hates them, and their kids are distant, and make it real.
Yeah. We had up here in Fairbanks, we had I read in the paper 4 murders in the hotel, and it's like, holy shit, how did that happen? It was the like a police lieutenant. He had retired. His son had gotten married, and was on drugs, was abusive, and it was the lieutenant's wife, his daughter, or his daughter-in-law, and his granddaughter. And this kid went in there and caught them while they were trying to escape, and that's why they were in a hotel. Killed all of them, suicided himself. Because when the first article came out, it said they found this guy sitting in the hallway crying. And it's like, okay, so they took him into custody, and that was the first article. It's like, holy shit, man. Like some guy lost it, and it's like, no, this guy found him. And it's like, what a thing to find. Jesus. So right here, 4 murders. This is a town of 30,000 people, so our murder rate is really, really high. It's obscene. It's bigger than Milwaukee's rate, just because you have enough people to offset it. It's like dilution is the solution to pollution. That's it. All you have to do is get your parts per million down, so you increase the millions and keep the same number of parts, and you win. But our murder rate is extremely high because there's a drug problem up here, because 6 months of winter and darkness and all those things that people around the world are now experiencing. If you have to stay in your house, well, we have to stay in because -40 and shit like that, and dark, and alcohol is prevalent up here. So alcoholism and drugs are huge. So domestic abuse, that's 90% of the calls and the charges, and those kinds of things. You can work those in to your story. But if you look at TV, the TV cop shows, some of the very best, they usually end on a high note. Not the CS the one out of New York with I forget what the name of that one is, but
Special Victims.
No, it's the 1-9. It's been like Special Victims Unit. That one that's changed kind of titles and been going for like 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
That one is a darker show, but a lot of them, you look at like Bones and shows like that, Castle, where they go in, they still have that happy dynamic of, hey, they're solving crimes, they're knocking down bad guys, almost like a superhero story that the good guys come in and win. And that's an important element, because if you go down that path, understand that a target readership, they're looking for, because Bones is extremely successful still in writing. The lady who created that, she just published a book like last month, and Bones has run its course for the series, a TV series, yet that author is still writing books. of the forensic scientist and the her cop husband. So that's a premise that works. If you keep it too dark, you're going to be cutting your audience down to a certain point that you're limiting yourself. Cop shows, trying to keep a cop story or a crime thriller where there's kind of a win at the end, this will keep them coming back.
Right. I guess what it boils down to, it's entertainment. You don't have to get everything 100% right, because a lot of times there is not a happy ending at all in our jobs. You come home and you're like, wow, that shit actually happened. That sucked. That's where, you have high rates of divorce, suicide, all that. You're exposed to a lot of negative, ugly shit. And it's the nature of the beast. And that's just the way it is. So, and one more thing, going to circle back to the cop shootings thing again, is media. Not only are you worried about, am I going to go to prison? Am I going to be found guilty? Even though that was a justified shoot. But in the court of public opinion, don't watch. I always told my cops, I'm like, turn off Facebook. You're no longer on social media, which they shouldn't be in the first place. And don't look at that, and don't turn on the nightly news, because it'll mess with your head.
No.
Just don't do it, because their job is not to report the truth. Their job is to make money.
No. Yes. And that's you'll get demonized, and that's oh my God, I can't imagine. Especially if colors are involved. White cop shoots black suspect. Even like you said, completely justified. It's still, you're going to lose. You're going to lose in the court of public opinion. And there's a certain point in time where the name of the police officer is made public. And this is where the media pounce and now search everything. And this is why, like you said, you shouldn't be on Facebook. You should give them no ammo to shoot you with. And they will, because they make money off that. Because when they do a retraction, they won't do a retraction. It'll be like, this person has been charged. And they won't even probably mention that. They'll just move on to the next story that somebody else was charged and or cleared. Heaven forbid somebody be cleared, because if the court of public opinion has already judged the person, then the cleared officer is still guilty.
Correct. Yeah. And another thing that you could put in your stories is the families go through it with the cop. Husbands, wives, kids, they have to go to school every day.
Yeah.
And then maybe there was some big expose on channel whatever, their little buddies are going to be looking at them differently. And they might be saying some smart ass shit to them. And they have the angst of, is dad going to go to prison? It's like, I don't want to see dad go to prison. I don't want to see mom go to prison. And they, again, like we said, they could be 100% correct. They followed every rule. They did everything what they were supposed to do. And now they're thinking to themselves, oh, shit. So it's not just the cop that's going through it. It's also the family members. They go through it with them.
Yeah.
And they can develop some serious problems. I've seen it. I've had to deal with it, and it's heartbreaking. So if you want to put some real meat in there, that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, it adds three-dimensionality and realism, as well as the victim's family as well is countering, because nobody thinks their boy is a killer.
Right.
And in the case up here, the lieutenant, it's his kid, and he's a retired cop, and he couldn't salvage his own family from the violence that's out there. I mean, what a tragedy. That guy's probably moved out into the boonies and lives in a cabin all by himself and doesn't care if he lives or dies at this point.
Oh yeah, I don't know how you would move on from that, but that's unfortunate. But it's not unique. I'll just say that.
It's not. But writing the characters, there has got to be some angst. It can't constantly be, hey, let's clear this shit up and let's get back on the job. I mean, nobody is that distance from reality. But one thing that for added realism is not having that social media presence, so you can maintain your sanity while you're in question.
Yep. There are departments that a part of being hired is you have zero social media. Because, okay, you posted something when you were in college, or you were drunk, or maybe it wasn't even you. One of your buddies thought it would be
Yeah.
funny. You left your phone out unlocked. Hey, I'm going to post this. Well, okay, 10 years later, you're involved in X. And it's like, oh, look at him. Oh, God, what an asshole. Look what he did. And it's like, I didn't even do it. It wasn't even me, but it doesn't matter. So
Yeah.
we tell our new guys, it's like, if you want to be on social media, our department doesn't forbid it, but it is monitored. Guys have been suspended for, officially representing the department or in just nonchalantly doing it, not saying it's like, well, I'm a Milwaukee police officer and I say you should vote for, nothing like that, but innuendos or just slight anything. So yeah, social media is toxic. I think we all know that. It can be fun. It's like post pictures of your dogs or your kids or, whatever, something fun, something funny, keep it lighthearted. That's what I try to do, in my cops and writers group. I strictly forbid talk of politics. I strictly forbid, any kind of drama. It's the same thing with 20 books. You don't need that shit in your life. It's like, okay, let's talk about writing. Let's talk about like police stuff. Let's stay on track. Let's stay on the rails.
So what resources would you recommend for somebody, a writer, besides hiring Patrick O'Donnell as consultant?
Well, of course, it should just be that. But what I suggest is a couple of things. One, Adam Richards has a very good podcast called The Writers Detective Bureau. And that's once a week. He usually drops it on Sunday, sometimes Monday. He's a full-time detective, and he has a Facebook group also. That's an excellent Facebook group. I think that's a good resource. He goes into the weeds he'll take like maybe 2 or 3 questions. It's not a very long podcast. I think it's maybe 20 minutes. So you can get what you need to get out of it. And then, he just more or less is a Q&A kind of thing. So that's, I think, one of the best resources. There are some books, but a lot of them are dated or they're not spot on. I'm trying to think of the gal.
Is there a TV show that you would recommend as more representative of reality?
You know what? When Southland was on, they got the talk between the cops and some of the backstories. The cops weren't these one-dimensional, either stoic figure that had zero emotion, or was just this crazy guy that was kind of, always on the edge. He was, like a Lethal Weapon kind of thing with Riggs. That gets overdone. Not every cop is ready to break. Not every cop, you can't think of a more melting pot of people from different backgrounds, especially in a big city. Maybe smaller towns are a little bit different, but in a big city, you have a little bit of everything, when it comes to coppers. There is, for the FBI, there is a gal that wrote a book, and it's really good. And she's got a podcast also. I'm going to look it up right now. Boy.
Okay.
I feel bad that I can't remember her name.
But for authors, getting the characters right is important. Having them deeper and not cliche also will make you unique in the business. This is something that's very important. That will keep you relevant and viable. It's a resource that is UK centric. We had Barry Hutchinson on the show, and under his J.D. Kirk pen name, he writes Scottish crime fiction. And what he did is he went down to the local constabulary and talked with them. So for UK authors, go talk to your folks. Find somebody and see if they'll be willing to talk to you about stuff. Martha Carr did that in Austin, and she actually even got a ride along. She got to ride along and observe to help her. I heard of that in Anchorage here as well. I believe Lois Simonson did that and got to ride along, got to hang out with the police and learn. And so nothing like firsthand information. That's probably the best you get it. Here's Patrick. Others, if you read other resources, now you're getting a second perspective, even if it is done by the cop himself, like the Cops and Writers group. getting that firsthand direct knowledge, especially very specifically to your situation, nothing's better than doing it locally.
Yeah, I just found what I was looking for. Jerry Williams is a retired special agent from the FBI, and she wrote a book called FBI Myths and Misconceptions, a manual for armchair detectives. And she also has a weekly podcast where she goes over a case with another retired special agent. Usually, she might have some ATF guys. She might have some other feds as well. But that's a treasure trove of information too. And I bought the audiobook because, well, first of all, I like audiobooks. And secondly, she does the narration, and she incorporated snippets from her podcasts in every chapter. So that was different, and it was really well done. I was very impressed. So that's an excellent resource. Okay. And some police departments have citizen academies where you go through like a modified police academy, and and it gives you, like, our department has one, and they'll take you, you're at the academy. You will fire a gun. You will, do like baton strikes into a bag. They won't pepper spray you in the face or anything like that. It's not like super hardcore.
Will they tase you? Will they tase you, bro?
Yeah, right in the eyeball. Right in the eyeball. Just like in Hangover. Ride the lightning. That's right. You're gonna ride that lightning.
You need to experience it. You need to experience it.
God, that's funny. But yeah, the Citizen Academy is really good. And like what you said, if you can make contact with any of the local coppers, naturally we're very suspicious because people are always trying to find some dirt on you. Always. So keep that in mind. But if you notice there's cops that are eating at the same restaurant, 2 or 3 times a week, or if they're going to Dunkin' Donuts or wherever they're going for a coffee.
Oh, geez. Man, how would you generalize a cop like that?
You mean the donuts? Don't you? Those are cop pills. Those are cop vitamins. I mean, you got to have them. That's whenever a new cop comes in, like, they had to bring in donuts. So if you're new, if you got transferred, you better not come in empty-handed. Yeah, especially the day shift guys that are a little bit older. It's like there better be coffee and there better be donuts, or there will be blood. You don't want to come in empty-handed, kids.
You fucking nugs.
Exactly.
You better get this right.
Yes, exactly. So, obviously, like I said before, police are very suspicious of anybody just coming up to them and say, "Hey, I'm a writer. Can you tell me all your deepest, darkest secrets?" And be like, "Yeah, no." And also be cognizant of a lot of times we're on time constraints. Like whenever the last district that I worked at was the first time in 25 years that I was able to sit down and eat a meal. Usually it was in my car or at the district. You picked up something on the run, or you just packed your own lunch. Or late at night, there wasn't anything open anyways. It was just, that's why the whole cop and donut thing started, because they started frying donuts at 2 or 3 in the morning. They were open at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So it was one of the only places you could go for a cup of coffee and something to eat, either that or a gas station.
Yeah.
So if you didn't pack your own stuff. So, you know what, if you see them, just be brutally honest and say, hey, you know what, I'm a writer. I want to make sure I get things correct and make you guys look good. I don't want to do anything that makes you look bad. Make friends with them. Maybe buy them a cup of coffee.
Yeah. Here's a copy of a book I already have written, so you can see that I am real. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of times, it's kind of on the down low, because technically I couldn't even talk at my kids' grade school in uniform about police stuff unless I wrote some 10-page memorandum and have the chief, bless it. And, it's silly. So sometimes it's out of their control, but a day shifter that's almost done with their career, they don't give a shit. All right, fine. Yeah, I'll talk to you. No problem.
Yeah.
You have a lot more freedom that way.
You have to ask. I know writers are mostly introverts and you don't want to reach out and talk to real people, but how important is this? And you said that right away about how you wrote while still working full time. And that was, how bad do you want it? How bad do you want a crime thriller to be accurate for future, for your legacy. I mean,
Right.
if you're just writing fantasy, then that's a different issue. But you can get this right. It's not that hard.
You know, and you're doing the right thing by, like I said before, you're going to have some artistic license. You can bend some rules. It doesn't. I always tell all my clients, it's like, you know what? It's your story. You know, you should know where true north is on the compass. And then
Yeah.
if you want to deviate from that, that's fine. You know, no problem. But you also have a responsibility when you're writing a book or any kind of story, especially about something like, okay, police work. There might be a young kid that's reading that and thinks, oh, that's the way it really is. And maybe they want to be a cop, or it might dissuade them from being a cop. Because it's like, well, if it's like that, I don't want to be doing that for a living. You know, they're all a bunch of, you know, fill in the blank. Or, oh, that looks super cool. You know, it's nothing but car chases and, you know, foot chases and, you know, nobody writes a report, you know, where it's the exact opposite, you know, circling back, you know, in most stories you see, you know, it's the detective that's running after the bad guy, they're chasing people down. That's almost 0%. Unless you're in a unit like a vice unit where you're working along with the cops, yeah, then you're going to be involved in car chases, you're going to be involved in shootings, etc. But it's a very, very low percentage. Most detectives are suit and tie detectives, we call them. They come well after everything is done and over with, everything is stabilized, and they do the investigation. That has to be done. And it's a lot of boring, tedious work. And for the cops, you know, it's like, okay, when I was newer, I was in a chase almost every night, or somebody else was in a chase. We'd have multiple chases. The district that I worked in, we had at least one shooting a night. And that was just my district that I worked in. It was the height of the crack wars when I first started in the 90s.
Okay.
And it was the Wild West. But what a time to be a cop. You know, when you're brand new, it's like, wow, this is kind of fun. I get to drive around in a squad car, put on the lights and sirens and chase people. You know, who cares if people are shooting at me, or, you know, you're constantly surrounded by live gunfire in this neighborhood.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is for hours, literally. But
Yeah.
what's not shown is, okay, chase, fun, go get the bad guy. Now you're inside writing reports for 4, 5, 6, 7 hours.
Yeah.
You know,
And
that's
getting them kicked back. You described when you wrote a report, you spent a lot of time, you wrote it, hey, this is pretty good, you're ready to go home, you turn it in, and you get it back.
Well, it was the dreaded red pen. You know, when I first started, all of our reports were handwritten. And as a police officer, you know, it's like, okay, you know, I'm working late shift. You know, you're dying by 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. You started at midnight. And you're tired, you're hungry, you just want to go home and go to bed or do whatever. You just don't want to be there anymore. You finish up your report,
Yeah.
and I remember, you know, you turn in your report. If you had a body, that means you arrested somebody, everything had to be done right then, because the reports follow the body down to the county jail. The district attorney is going to review it, etc. A bunch of eyes are going to be on your report. So you have to make sure it's done right. But I remember one time, you know, it's like the red pen sucked, but I had one sergeant, he was the acting lieutenant. I go in there and I knock on the door, and I'm like, Officer O'Donnell, you know, oh, come in, kid, come in. And it's like, he's looking at it, and he's just giggling. And the guy I'm with, he's giggling. And I'm just like, you just knew something shitty's going to happen. He flipped out his Zippo. We call him Sergeant Cigar. And he just set it on fire in front of me. And I'm like, no, I'm like jumping over his desk. I'm like, please, no. This took me forever to write. And that was handwritten. There was no way to save it. I was totally screwed. He says, I guess you're gonna be here for a lot longer, huh, kid? Ha 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 ha. I'm like, oh. All right. I guess. You know, and then if you don't have,
start over.
Yep, start over. And now, you know, it's all done via computer. And, you know, the tables were turned. You know, I'm the sergeant, and if the lieutenant was there, sometimes I'd be the acting lieutenant. You have some poor schmuck late shifter in there that could barely keep his eyes open. Sarge, I got this arrest. You know, it's like, okay. But I'm looking at his reports on the computer. You know, it's obviously they're not handwritten anymore. Everything is done on the computer. I try to be as kind as possible, because I do remember what that was like. It sucked.
Yep.
But that's, and you know what, when you're writing a story, obviously, it's like, hey, I was writing reports for 7 hours, but maybe incorporate some of that it's not just, hey, I just arrested this guy, I had this big car chase, 5 minutes later, hey, I'm back on the street, let's do it again. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Getting those reports done. Somebody's got to backstop you. It could be a plot device. Hey, somebody else has to go on the road because we've had 3 chases and nobody's left on the road.
Right.
So,
or if it was a really busy night, if it was a real busy night, you would do just the bare bones as far as an arrest report goes. And then you just kick them out and kick the cops out and say, okay, go back out there. When I was newer, it was nothing to start the night out 50, 60 assignments in the hole, which means there'd be for police waiting for us for like 8 cars.
Yeah.
And it was all by priority. So, some of them could be just like loud music parties or a barking dog, or a garage burglary. That's going to wait. The guy who shot on the sidewalk, he's number 1. Got to go to that.
Yeah.
So that's how that played out.
More plot devices. The priority. What about you have 8 cops and number 9 is actually the most important, but it was misreported when it was called in. How about that? Yeah. Right. Other things you can do. All kinds of stuff when it comes to putting cops into your stories. What do you recommend for the old grizzled sergeant? Create a character for us right now, man. Right now. What drives him after 20 years on the force?
Is the
besides
retired
alimony
old
and child support. Besides
the
alimony and child support.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that's real. That's very real. That's real. That's the gift that just keeps on giving. Let me tell you, even when you retire, that's the gift that keeps on giving. That's, what, as far as another plot line is what I've seen time and time again is young cops. This is a lot of the times this is their first quote unquote real job, making pretty decent money. And a lot of times they overextend themselves. So you have pressure from the job itself, but don't forget about, you could also have economic pressure. So they're working more overtime. They're volunteering for, some departments will let you work, say, at a grocery store or a hotel or something like that, where they're having a problem. But that's all on overtime. So you work your 8 hours or 9 hours or 10 hours, then you sign up for a 4 or 5 hour block. Now, you're spreading yourself pretty thin. And I've seen that because a lot of times, not a lot, but enough where cops was like, hey, that car is really cool, I'd like to get that. Or they buy their first house and maybe they overextend themselves that way. That's just more and more stress that you can throw in that pot that'll make it for an interesting story.
Yeah. So today we've had Patrick O'Donnell talking about cops, and we talked about some crime and some things that to keep in mind. And yes, I agree. Cabot Cove is the most violent place on the planet. Murder, She Wrote, as clearly how it's done everywhere. Have an author, and Murder, She Wrote in Castle. You have authors solving crimes because the cops just can't. Clearly, that's a paradigm that we should all follow. But here we are. Watch this podcast. Join Cops and Writers if you're going to put a cop in your books, and you don't have that firsthand knowledge and experience. So please, and do it right. Do them upright. Don't make any of them look like a douchebag. Even if they are, then write a different character that you can make a douchebag, and treat them appropriately. Like my absolute and visceral disdain for bureaucrats and other fuckwits. So get that right. It can be your brand, and you can wear it like a cowboy hat in Texas. Tomorrow we have on Chris Kennedy coming to you, talk to you about indie publishing and how he manages a business, especially with he does the con circuit as well as manages a number of writers. He also has a co-author deal with David Weber. So will be an interesting conversation with Chris tomorrow. But today, Patrick, any final words before we cut for the day?
Yeah. One final thing when you're talking about stressors, if you want to build your character, build your cop as far as, not being one dimensional, is the stress that comes with the job. A lot of it comes from inside the department. We were talking about, the internal investigation that occurs when you shoot and kill somebody. Well, there's internal investigations for all kinds of things. Somebody's pitching, it's called pitching a bitch against a cop, saying it could be as, hey, he was rude to me during this traffic stop, or he didn't investigate this thing like he should have. You know, right before I retired, I got into a situation where we were called to assist ICE. And it's like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
well, obviously that was a big hot button back then. It's not as hot now, but it still is. And we have these federal agents literally flagging us down. Hey, we got this guy. He's got a warrant. He needs to go. They came up from Chicago to get this guy. He's been on their radar forever. And it's like, okay, so I'm not going to drive by. And technically, per our SOP, any federal agent says, hey, we need help. You got to help. So to make a long story short, we did everything per SOP. Everything was resolved. No violence whatsoever. Guy was taken into custody. End of story. Holy shit. I wind up at internal affairs. I didn't know if I was going to be able to retire or not. I don't know if I was going to get fired for doing all the right stuff. And the guy from internal affairs that was doing my interview, you sit through an interview, is like, I asked him, I said, what rule did I break? He said, oh, none. So what did I do wrong? Nothing. So, okay, the mayor has his undies in a bunch. And, whatever social justice warriors have their undies in a bunch. So now you're threatening me and my cops, and I just want to get the fuck out of Dodge. I want to retire. And you're doing this shit to me? That's what keeps you up at night. You become the political pinata for doing your job. So make sure you put that in there too.
Win.
Right.
And I would say that's exactly what happened to me as well when I worked Department of Homeland Security, is that same attitude. What did I do wrong? What rule did I break? Well, none, but. Yeah, none, but. What do you mean, but?
It's against your whole grain. You're like, really? If I did everything I was supposed to do, I made sure my cops did everything they were supposed to do, and we had a peaceful resolution to everything. And why are you putting my feet to the fire? Just because, whatever.
So I have to say, I appreciated going to law school after that most unhappy experience, which I was going to law school anyway, and so that had just expedited. But fuck you guys, I'm out of here, and went to law school and realized how wrong they were. I mean, how very wrong they were. And this is when you get on the wrong side of politics while in a position how you can't win. So I never want people talking about politics, because there's no winning.
No,
because it is whatever the flavor of the day. And so cops, you're on the wrong end of that, because if you go into a hard neighborhood, they all hate you. Just the very sight of your authority. And you have to deal with that. And then you go back to the station and people are going to, the armchair quarterbacks, which I'm not a big fan of armchair quarterbacks.
Oh, there's a lot of that.
So you weren't there. Yeah. Well, I think you're lying.
Yeah,
and that's not.
Being around live gunfire, being around, it's like I had a prostitute that had live active MRSA spit in my face. I had a significant exposure to hepatitis. I've had bullets miss my head by a foot. None of that stressed me out like the long drive to internal affairs, wondering, am I going to have a job or not? Not even close. And that's every cop. Nobody wants to go through that. It sucks. And if you're an active cop, it's going to happen a lot. It's just the nature of the beast. People aren't happy when they're going to jail.
And the final words, internal affairs, it's a necessary job, but it'll turn your hair gray. So that's for sure. All right. Everyone have a good time. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks a lot for being on, Patrick. Really appreciate your insight and sharing your experience with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.